ושמחת בחגך והיית שמח 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 ושמחת בחגך והיית ושמחת בחגך והיית ושמחת בחגך והיית שמח 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 ושמחת בחגך והיית שמח. Okay, everybody have a sheet. There's some more sheets here. Spread around a little bit. Plenty of sheets there. People.
No more chairs?
Pass them back.
The second sheet?
Oh, am I glad to have you and I. Yeah, they would blame my weight.
The second sheet?
No, this is pile for the front. Then you pass for the front. We have pile there.
The guy comfortable?
They shape us.
Oh, man. Just one sheet. I have this minhag to learn different parts of the Rambam on Hoshanna Rabba for years already. I always try to choose sort of like independent modules in the Rambam. So one year we learned Hilchos Nevuah, one year we learned Hilchos Malachim, one year we learned Hilchos Talmud Torah. So I kind of ran out. What's the next independent module? So it just popped in my head to look at the Yud Gimel, what the Rambam calls Yud Gimel Yisodos and everybody else calls Yud Gimel Ikrim of the Rambam, the 13 principles of faith, which we're mostly familiar with through the Animamim that's in the Siddur, which is, by the way, written by it's a Shlit'a Shleinoy Delami. We don't know who wrote it, but I presume if it's the Minhag Yisrael, that's in every single Siddur almost in the world. The Animamim must have been Rabbi Yaacov Haber. I don't know who wrote it though. I think that's part of the Shaklavataria with your father who wrote it. It's still not clear who wrote it. Yigdal also. No, but not clear who wrote the Yigdal. But this is clear. What's clear is that the Rambam wrote the 13 Yud Gimel Yisodos, and it's called Yud Gimel. He himself calls them Ikrim, but the thing that on the chapter heads, they're called Yud Gimel Yisodos, and I mentioned that what it is. We just copied onto a page for you. What it really is the Pirush HaMishnayos of the Rambam on Perek Chelek in Masechta Sanhedrin, and there, because it's not really a halacha thing, but it's all a pirush on the Mishnah that Kol Yisrael Yesh Lahem Chelek Le'olam Haba, and more important, Ve'elu She'ein Lahem.
Right.
These are the ones that don't have a chelek.
Right.
So that was important to the Rambam to understand he was Myrich, as he puts it, to try to understand who doesn't get a chelek in Olam Haba. That's not a double pasha. So it's part of the Pirush Mishnayos. But the reason why it's important part of the Pirush Mishnayos is because he wrote the Pirush Mishnayos. It was the first chibur that the Rambam wrote, I believe. He wrote other small chiburim, but the first major contribution that the Rambam made, and he was relatively young. I'm not sure exactly how young, but much younger than when he wrote the Yad HaChazaka, and much younger than when he wrote things like the Igaris Teiman and the Mer Nevuchim. I heard from Rav Moshe Shapiro that he wrote the Mer Nevuchim B'Soif Yamav. It was like the last thing that he wrote, that was a sort of a tie-up. I heard different sheets about that also, but that's what I heard. But what's clear is that the Pirush Mishnayos, meaning these Yud Gimel Ikrim, he actually wrote when he was young. And I found it very interesting that there's a Rambam called the Kapach Rambam. That's because it was gone over by Rav Kapach, Taimani Rav. It was a Gaon Adir. And what he did is he was fluent in Rambam's Arabic, which was the language of the Pirush Mishnayos that the Rambam originally wrote it in. He wrote it in Arabic, and it was translated by Ibn Tibbon into Hebrew. So the reason why it's in Hebrew is just because really it's Ibn Tibbon who wrote it into Hebrew. And very interesting, by the way, the Geras of the Rambam and Ibn Tibbon never met each other. They were at the same time, but they never read each other. Ibn Tibbon was very taken with something that he read from the Rambam. He said that he'd like to translate all of his works. So the Rambam wrote him back that it would take a tremendous amount of amelus to translate everything, and you really have to get the ruach of what I'm saying. And so he said, I'll come here, I'll come to you, and I'll learn by you. I really want to. I think this is an important contribution. And the Rambam told him, no, there's no Indian to come to me. I don't have time, even a minute a day, to spend with you. What goes through is famous. That part of it is famous. I think his famous letter he described to Ibn Tibbon, his Seder Hayov, as a doctor, and he goes into his his medical rooms, and there's people waiting, and he sees them one after the other. He goes and he greets everybody. It's very beautiful, actually. He greets everybody. Shalom Aleichem. Thank you for coming. Not like the real doctors do. Thank you for coming. He greets them. Sorry to make you wait. And he wasn't living in Eretz Yisrael. He spent time with each person. And he said by the time he finishes this whole thing, he gives the whole Seder, he stops to daven mincha very quickly. By the time he finishes this whole thing, he just collapses. So he said his Seder Hayom doesn't allow for anything. Anyways, at the end, he let Ibn Tibbon, he said, I'll let you translate it. But he said to this is me, I'm a bit of a publisher, so this is hit my eye. He said that if you want to translate it, he says the thing is like this, you have to be Baki in three things. You have to be Baki in Arabic to really know what I mean. You have to be Baki in Hebrew to really know how to express what I mean in a different language, and you have to be Baki in Kol HaTorah Kula. So Rav Kapach said that he was definitely Baki in Arabic and in Hebrew. But the Rambam himself, and this is the part that's so interesting. I didn't know this. The Kapach Rambam, he has the Pirush Mishnayos, not all of it, but he found another girsa in the original Arabic of the Pirush Mishnayos, where after the Rambam received it in Hebrew later in his life, he wrote ha'aris on it in Hebrew. So he had those ha'aris in Hebrew. So it's like interesting when you think about it, that the Pirush Mishnayos was written early on in Arabic, translated, and then the Rambam himself wrote some ha'aris on it in Hebrew to improve a little bit what it was meant to say, and that's not in the Pirush Mishnayos, not even in the one that I printed for you, but I do have it here. So I just want to read you a couple of things. So that's the history of it. So anyways, I came with this idea to learn the Yud Gimel Ikrei HaRambam, and as I started to learn the last couple of days, to learn through the Yud Gimel Ikrei, I realized I made a very good choice. It's not only is it interesting, but extremely important. So just the end of the Pirush Mishnayos, we just look at the bottom of the sheet there for a second. He should have put this at the beginning, but he puts it at the end. He says, Kvar Arachti B'dvar Ma'oi, this is what he writes at the end of this Chelek of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. Kvar Arachti B'dvar Ma'oi, V'yatsasi Minyan Febure. He says, I'm already way off what I set out to do when I wrote the Pirush HaMishnayos. Elisha CCK. The reason I did this is Lefi Sharisi Shezetoyelas Be'emuna. Lefi Shani Asafti L'Chadvarim Rabim Mo'ilim Hamfuzarim B'Chiburim Rabim Ugdalim. I brought to you some very, very important inyanim of Emunah. And Haya Behem Usher V'Chazor Al Dvarai Ele Pamim Rabbos. He says, I want you to go over my words many times. He's quite in Ben Hatus. We have him first Rambam. It's a din of the Rambam that you have to learn this often and over again. Ba'al Tamayer, the Imtishloischa Machshavtecha Shekvar Hibadta Yadov Mipam Achas. If you your mind tricks you to think that you already understand it because you read it one time, or yes, or maybe 10 times, Hashem Yodeya Shebesheker Hishaltois. It's impossible.
That's why it's in the Siddur.
But it's not in the Siddur, not this lesson.
Oh, not this one.
Yeah, Altamar boy, don't go fast. Lefi Shanai, maybe. Is it? How do you know? Anyway, like a safti, Eishin is damin. I didn't just write what came to mind. Ella acher his boinenus is the Rambam. Acher his boinenus v'yishuv adas v'iyun b'deis nechaynais ubilti nechaynais. He says I had to very interesting. I learned everything which was correct and everything that was incorrect in order to be able to choose out for you these Yud Gimel Ikrim. The sikum mashetzarech lahamin behem will be rurai b'tainos v'rayis hakol inyan v'inyan. Umeis Hashem eshel lanachois sini b'derech emes. I hope I did good. V'achzir linyanei haperek, and I'll go back. So he's saying, like, spend as much time on it as I did, as the Rambam said, which obviously we're not going to do. But most people spend zero time on it at best. To say the Ali Mamins.
We sing it.
And we sing it. It's a nigunim. At least one of them is a nigun. Maybe a second one's a nigun. But mostly we don't know it. So I just want to give this this little Hakdama, which let's call it a Lamdish Hakdama, even though there's nothing Lamdish about it. The Rambam wrote. The Rambam came up with these 13 ideas. So these 13 points of the Rambam, which will I'm going to try to learn through 5 of them tonight. Chatzos is 11:25, so I could go at least through Chatzos. But by the way, if somebody feels tired and you have to leave, so leave. But if you stay, you're guaranteed Olam Haba.
Your choice.
Yeah. There's no where's the Yud Gimel anywhere. It's a symbolic number. It's gematria echad. Well, a number of things that are Yud Gimel, but Yud Gimel midas arachmim. But that's not the Rambam style. So
There was only 12 negative things that one of the things was not even mentioned there.
But what are these? For instance, the Alba, the Sefer Ikrim. So he argues with this, and he says that first of all he argues with the whole idea. It's an interesting thing because he says that what is the Rambam pulling things out of the Torah and saying this is an Iker ki ilu something else is a tafel. So he didn't like the lashon, and then he went and called the Sefer Ikrim. He called it himself Sefer Ikrim, but that's his kasha, the Rambam. Like what? How do you call one part of the Torah? Like it would be like, you tell somebody that tefillin is a very important mitzvah, more important than all the other mitzvahs. Or I read today like mikvah. Mikvah is the most important mitzvah. What's the most important mitzvah? The most important mitzvah. So, what makes something an ikr in order to you're saying other things are tafel? And then he says another kasha. These are by and large not even mitzvahs. Like it's not even that they're mitzvahs. They're like, so it's like chayvus halvavos. And B'chlal, like the Rishonim didn't like the idea of there being a theological dogma to Yiddishkeit. It felt like not Jewish. Like, Yiddishkeit is you do mitzvahs and you worship Hashem, and like you don't need a philosophical dogma in order to be Jewish. It didn't feel right. It felt very, very Rambamic. So Rishonim didn't like it, but the Sefer Ikriv picks on him, and then he says, and if anything, there's 4 Ikrim which are important, not 13. So it's kind of interesting to work out, like what's driving the Rambam to pull one thing out of the Torah as opposed to something else. Like what's the common denominator of the 13, or why are these Ikrim? The idea of an Ikr, the kasha that the Albo has, is a bit of a shvacha kasha, because the Gemara says 2 or 3 places that I know of, Hareza kafar be'ikr. So there is such a thing as an ikr. What does kafar be'ikr mean? It doesn't mean kafar b'Hashem. Kafar be'ikr. There's such a lashon of kafar be'ikr. So besides, without the Rambam, already in Chazal, there's a lashon of kafar be'ikr. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the Rambam didn't call them ikr b'chal. The Rambam called them yasodos. So he does say over and over again that this person's a kofer baker, that person's a kofer baker, but he calls them yesodis. But what's the driving point of these 13? Why did he pull these 13 inyanim out of this? And some of them he doesn't even bring psukim for. You'll see, like some of them are just sort of like the Rambam's, like the Svar's Machayim. But it's not philosophically tenable to say otherwise. That's also a nikkur. So the Brisker Rav explains something here, and this is extremely important. I'm embellishing the Brisker Rav a little bit, but there's one sentence of the Brisker Rav which is famous. So the Brisker Rav said he heard from Reb Chaim Brisker, and that is that Nebuch Apokaris is Oichet Apokaris. That's a famous lashon of the Brisker lashon. Nebuch Apokaris. Everyone get the Yiddish? Nebuch Apokaris. The only Yiddish word here is Oichet. Nebuch Apokaris is Oichet Apokaris, meaning there's if a person never grew up, never knew you're supposed to put on tefillin. So okay, Nebuch, you're not going to get an odor you're not putting on tefillin because it's tzedek shedishma, or your noidus, or it's not. But if a person is a firm Jew, and you just have like a kilkul and deus, like I thought wrong the whole time. So you're not going to go to Shemayim and say, it's not my fault, I thought wrong. I thought Yoshka was right. I thought that was the way to go, No, it doesn't work that way, because you missed the boat. Like even, in other words, Nebuch and Apokaris, if you're Nebuch and Apokaris, so you're also an Apokaris, Nebuch, but you're still an Apokaris, meaning you still didn't worship and serve and spend your life doing Avodas Hashem. You thought the important thing was some other kilkul days, and this is only true, the Brisker Rav says, by these 13. So this becomes the definition of Apokaris, or min, or koifer. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same idea. The dogma that the Rambam presents becomes the definition of what, if you don't do this, okay, you don't do it. We're not going to hate you because of it. But you didn't do what you were supposed to do in this world. That's why the Rambam says these are extremely important. And elu she'en lahem chelik lo'olam haba. Elu she'en lahem chelik lo'olam haba. Rambam's being mefarish that mission. Don't forget. Elu chelik lo'olam haba means that Nebuch, we're saying, okay, but let me go to Olam Haba anyway. I didn't learn. I didn't go to Brisk. I didn't learn. I didn't have access to the Pirush HaMishnayos on Rambam or the Kapach edition. It doesn't make any difference. You have to know this. This is something you have to know, and you have to know it clear, and you have to believe it. And if you don't know it, you don't believe it, then you're not believing as a Jew. I just don't want to be political, but I just lately, as I get older, I get more and more impatient, as probably everybody notices. One of the things that I'm very impatient about is you read things that people write. And it's not like a different hashkafa. It's like mamish shtus. They're people without realizing that they're not that I'm the arbiter of what's good or what's not good. But I don't write unless I know there's such a thing as getting haskava from Gedolah. That there is such a mitzias, and people write things which are mamish the krub and can literally lead to apokarsis. And what he's doing is he's saying a svara. But it would have looked at one Rambam, he wouldn't be saying that whole svara. Like he's saying a whole svara, like so he's saying something you could like. So Aristotle also said svaras, but they were wrong. Like Elush Elam Chelik Loilam Haba, Aristotelians, or Hakar B'Seif B'Svar Ketzaydin. Those are Shalem. So you got to be very careful. So that's the importance. I think. That's why I think I made a good choice here, if I ever get to it. It's a good choice. But I want to say this part here, that it's mash after reading the entire first three prakim of the Sefer Ikrim of the Albo, it seems to me that the following is true. That the following is true according to the Rambam. Let's put it that way. That almost everything Jewish that you could think of, there's going to be a machlokes about. Like, okay, there's no machlokes that you have to keep Shabbos. Is a machlokes? I mean, even we don't pass it that way. Das Yachid, there's a Das Yachid that Chutz La'aretz, there's no chiyuv of keeping. It's only if it's a zeicher. Das Yachid, we don't pass it that way. But there's a Das Yachid. There's a Das Yachid that says that b'yamim elu we don't have tara, we shouldn't put on tefillin. This machlokes is almost about everything. So what does that mean? It means that if somebody says, somebody living in Rochester, New York, says, I'm not going to keep Shabbos. So even though he's doing an avera, is being l'chal Shabbos, and it's b'shat nefesh, and it's a terrible thing, get an onesh for it, chas v'sholom. But you can't call him an apakaris, because if you call him an apakaris, then you're going to be calling Reb Chia an apakaris. Like, in other words, even if there's one das anywhere in Kol HaTorah Kula which would back him up, so he's doing wrong, he's doing shaloi halacha, no question about it. But sof kol sof, it's a machlokas. Sof kol sof, it's a machlokas. He's got that little edge on it. The Rambam, in his go'ilus, in his bekiyas, in Kol HaTorah Kula, every word of the Torah, put forth. He says, I found for you 13 things that there's absolutely no machlokes about. Because the Albo says, well, I can find a machlokes, in Tchias HaMesim. That's why I said, according to the Rambam says there are 13 yesoidos, and these yesoidos, the word is so gishmak, yesoidos. There's 13 fundamental principles that there's no machlokes about, and that's the Yud Gimel Ikrim. What does that mean? That means it doesn't just mean, if you think about it, it doesn't just mean that if somebody violates one of these Yud Gimel Yisoidis, oh wow, that's really bad, like it's really Yisoidistic. That means that also. But what I'm saying is something much broader than that, and that is that if you'll find 3 or 4 or 13 things that, listen, nobody argues about, not the Ashkenazim, not the Sfardim, not the Chassid, nobody argues about this. So then, if you do argue with that, so then what's happening is, it's no longer Jewish. It's not Jewish. In other words, these 13 things become the definition of what Judaism is. Like it's a double nifla that I once worked out, that the Cheshire right in front of me, or once worked out that the Christians, for instance, hold, they believe in, I think I worked out 9, clearly 9 of the 13 Ikrim. The Reformed Jews, I couldn't think of one actually. Which one do they believe? So it means to say that, which one do they believe? Maybe they believe in God, let's say. They believe in God. But I don't know if they believe in God the way the Rambam tells us. Huh? Misafik. I don't, even if they believe in God, I don't know that they know what God is to believe. But what I'm saying is, not as much as, I don't want to be Makatrik, but what's interesting is like we'll just be political for a second. Let's say the Reform movement comes in and says, we want to be part of the Rabbinate of Israel. They should be like you have Arabs and you have Jews and you have Tibetan Buddhists. There could be like Reform Jews. I have nothing against them. Some of my best friends are Reform Jews. But what I'm saying is that as an ideology, once you go against the Yud Gimel, once you walk out of this Yud Gimel, or okay, you want to be more Bakel, so don't go with the Rambam Shita, go out of the Yud Beis. So now you've walked out of the Miskeret of what's called Judaism, Ladati. So that's what makes it so much more Yesodistic than every other. So say, okay, I want to be part of Judaism, but I just don't want to put on tefillin. So okay, you're still Jewish, still somehow a Jewish thing. But once you don't believe that Torah is Min HaShamayim, let's say, which is one of them, you don't believe Torah is Min HaShamayim. It's a simple one.
Was that his main filter, finding the 13 things that had no machloket on?
Of course, that's what I'm saying.
That was it.
But that's the main point. So he said. So what he was really defining here was the essence of Judaism. That's what he was defining. He was defining what Yiddishkeit is. So I think that background helps in terms of understanding what the Yud Gimel. Hence, there's a machlokes. The Ravid says, "Why are you calling this a nikkur?" The Elbow says, "Why are you calling that a nikkur?" Rav Saadia Goyen says, "Why?" There's machlokes, of course, about what's an ikkur. But what's their machlokes? They're not being chaylik on the yesod of the Rambam. They're being chaylik on the idea that why are you saying this becomes the definition of Judaism, or that becomes we can find a machlokes. Ein Mashiach Yisrael. One of the Tanoim, in Parashat, Ein Mashiach Yisrael. Okay, why are you calling him? Are you going to call him as a kofer baker? The Ravid says a number of times, Lama Karel is a min. We're going to get to it. Why are you calling him a min? But what the Rishonim were working with was a very clear definition of indisputable yisodos of Yiddishkeit, and if you're out of that, then and we're gonna learn inside a bit of why that's so bad. I mean, but the simple pshat, even without any Rambam, is that we think we're fulfilling Judaism, but then we're in for a big surprise if we after 120 years we find out that
We were wrong.
you're not sure you didn't do anything Jewish. I mean, hundreds of millions of people are in the category of being in for that surprise. So we don't want to be in that number when they come walking in. We want to know that what we're doing is the emes. Okay. Just want to give one more introduction. I'll make a little chayim. The Rambam uses over and over again, and so this is why I stelled on it, the word emes. Ein emes ka'amitas Hashem. Emes. So I just I stopped to think for a second. What does the word emes actually mean? Does that sound like a rhetorical question? It's not. I mean, a very serious question. Like what? At least in the Rambam's lashon, when the Rambam says emes, like what does it mean by emes? Like emes. So I just want to explain this a little bit, maybe grammatically, even, or just take it from the shirish. What's the shirish of the word emes? Nice? Okay, that's two letters. What about Emuna? Makash emes Emuna in language. What?
It's Kol HaTorah Kula.
What?
It's Kol HaTorah.
Okay, but that's a drasha. But I'm talking about in the shirish of the word actually. Aim? So I tell you something interesting grammatically that happens. There's what's called in the Hebrew language. The Radak points out that there are words that never became words, but they should be words, but they're not words. For example, you have a ben. What's the plural of ben? What's the plural of girls? No. What's the singular of girls? Bas. What happened?
Yeah.
So Hashem b'chasta took out the nun. Make it easier for us to say. So I suppose the word should really be benes, and Hashem shortened it to bas. Yep. There's a number of examples like that. Drop the nun, because why should a girl have two syllables and a boy have one? Ben, bas. Equality, right? So, but like, in other words, a libid emes, it should be ben. Benes. I'm saying just for. I'm sure I should have a reason, but that's
In Arabic, it has the nun.
has a nun.
Bin, yeah.
In Aramaic.
In Arabic also.
Yeah, but even Aramaic in the Gemara. Yeah. In Aramaic, if you look, especially not so much in the Gemara, in the Lashon HaZayar, bant or benes. But that's the other results ben, benet, banim, v'haraya, the plural. Right? We don't say batot or batim. We say banot. So it's a raya that there's supposed to be a nun there. So the real word emes is the same thing. It really should be amenes. The word emes should be amenes because emes is the same word as emunah. Emes is the same word as emunah, and therefore it should really have a nun in there. So if you want to search for what the word emes means, the way to look for what emes means is to figure out what emunah means. And then from there you have to go from when do you say emes and when do you say emunah. Emes ve'emunah.
What's the evidence that emes should have a nun in it?
Because the Radak says so. That's the first thing. But, what's the plural of the word emes? There's only one emes. Yesh emunois harbe. Yesh emunois harbe. Which brings you to the when do you say emes and when do you say emunah? What I'm saying here, by the way, that is fair. I mean, that's clear. I think this is clear that emes in emunah is the same word. And what we need to understand is this: that first of all, if emes is the same word as emunah, which is the same word as, let's say, imun or ne'eman or amen, so ne'eman u'matzasas avavai ne'eman lefanecha v'chulu, every place you can think of the word ne'eman means completely reliable. Let's stick with reliable, and it's not going to go away, and you can count on it. Matzasas avavai ne'eman lefanecha, his lave wasn't irrefutable. His lave was a ne'eman. We say a bias ne'eman b'Yisrael. Bias ne'eman b'Yisrael is a house you can count on. Yeah, it was a ne'eman base. I could count on you. You're not going to go hot and cold on me. You're not, right? Chol beisi ne'emanhu. Moshe Rabbeinu. Chol beisi ne'emanhu. Always. Always. Meaning, like, let's be a philosophers here for a minute. If something is always is a big always is a big amount of time. Always starts forever and it goes forever. It's infinity always. So emes becomes infinity. If we're talking about reliable, means that if we talk about that, I can count on you to be there on time, for instance, so that I don't be. That means that there is nothing else which is pulling you in any other direction except for this job that I'm giving you and me that's asking you to do it. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Rabbi Avinu, Matzasas levavai ne'eman lefanecha, it means that you were kaifer in all of Avodah Zarah. You gave up on all of Avodah Zarah. There's nothing else was druks you. There's no other philosophies in the back of your mind. There's no other suffix, as you said. Maybe a suffix. Maybe I should still be a little bit careful with. Like emunah. Emunah. Person that has emunah is a lemon. So like emes. When something emes. Once you'll see how the Rambam learns the word emes, and he says Hashem is emes. It means to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes. What do you mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes? He tells the truth. Obviously, he tells the truth. What does it mean that he's emes? He's irrefutable. He's reliable. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu is reliable in the sense that emes hatahu rishon, emes hatahu achrein, v'balodecha ein lanu melech elo.
That's the meaning of the word. Aleph to Taf.
Well, so that's your Aleph Mem Tov. Aleph Mem Tov, like rishon, achrein, always there, always reliable, not going to go away. And even deeper than that, and I'm just giving away the Rambams in advance, that there can't be anything, for instance, that this sounds like so out there, so academic, but it's so real. Like there can't be anything that created Hashem, one of the Ikrim. There can't be anything before Hashem, because if there's something that created Hashem, so that means there's something that then you don't have 100% emes.
Why do we
You have to be the first to be emes.
Why do we need the word shlema? Amuna shlema.
Well, it means that you mean isn't it redundant?
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit redundant.
It wasn't Rambam's Lashon anyway.
Yeah, it's not the Rambam's Lashon.
You could say it's a little bit poetic. That you don't need it. Sometimes when you're writing
Ali, Babid, Babuda,
Shlema.
3 times.
right, sometimes in poetry, so we'll say things a little redundant just to kind of draw a certain
Emphasize.
feeling. So we're saying 3 times, and Mishulash Lobamar you not take it. Like so, you want to drill it in, so you say it 3 times.
Okay.
Mamid, Muna, Shlema.
What's more interesting is what does it mean to be ma'amin? What does it mean animamin? Right. So animamin, which is not the Lashon of the Rambam, but there's certainly such a word. To be maimin in HaKadosh Baruch Hu means that there's no 2 ways. There's no other way. But what I really want to go like a deeper yesod, and that is that one of the things that the Rambam is going to put forth is the kadmus of the Rebbeinu Shalom. The kadmus of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That there can't have been anything before him. You say, well, who cares if there was something before him? If there was something before Hashem, which is obviously impossible for us to understand what that means even. But just to know this idea, if there was something before Hashem, that means Hashem is now relying on something else. I have a creator. Once you have a creator, you're not 100% reliable. Once I have like an Eved, an Eved can't have two masters. You can't. There can't be anything. But it's such a beautiful thing, like Avraham Avinu or Moshe Rabbeinu, Chol Beisi Lemonu.
You see, Yisro was not like that. Yisro said, I found you to be the greatest of all of you.
Of all.
Right.
And you see, he went away.
He went away.
Wasn't reliable.
It wasn't.
So Emunah is not belief.
Reliability in your belief. In other words, that a person has a real emunah. A person has real emunah means that it's not just unwavering, but there's no other tzad. So if you're doing like you said before, like Bitav Suffolk, like you never know. Like maybe I'll take my chance, like Menashe, right? So that's not emunah. That's something else. I don't know what that is. That's a businessman, gambler. He doesn't want to make a mistake. Everything, but
covers bases.
You have emunah in somebody. Let's say if I have emunah in you, I mean it's 100% faithfulness. 100% faithfulness. Moshe Rabbeinu had this milah. Avraham Avinu had this milah. So I just to tell you a lashon of the. I saw this Reb Tzadok he brings from the Sefer HaBoy here. And the lashon is. First of all, there the boy here it says before Shal, Ihi. There's a lashon of the Zohar is also in Parshas Pinchas brings us this particular lashon. Ihi emes, ihi emunah. That's before a second. Ihi emes, ihi emunah. For Tzaddik, for example, Azavai. That's his B'kiyas. But he brings the lashon of the ba here that emes is just a drop. I'm just using a drop of Kabbalah to make it easier. I'm not. That MS is duchra and emunah is nukva. Or to put it in language we understand, MS is lashon zachar, is a zachar, not a lashon zachar, but a zachar. See, in the whole Kabbalistic system, and good enough to understand, in the whole Kabbalistic system, there's always the noisein and the makabel. Like in the biological system, there's always a noisein and a makabel. So also like that in the spheres, like the spheres, there's the keser of Chachma Vino Das, and then there's the makabel of it, which is the next 3 spheres. That's already what we're on the receiving end always in the spheres. When you talk about keser, words, Tiferes, Netzachoid, Yisoid, Malchus, that's all receiving from the keser. So what's important to us is, I mean, conceptually it's easy to understand, right? There's a noisein and a makabel. So there's MS and there's emunah. So what that means is that like Hashem is MS. And Emunah is what we have. We being the Keli, or the bias. MS has a home. MS has a home. Where's the MS going? It's not esoteric. It's not just in this guy. MS, the home of MS is in Emunah. So Emunah can only be in this world. Moshe Rabbeinu, Nemon. Avraham Avinu, Nemon. These are carriers of the MS.
We also say Moshe Emes V'Toraso Emes. We also say Moshe Emes V'Toraso Emes.
Right.
So there's a concept we say Emes.
Right. There you see Emes as Emunah. Ihi Emes, Ihi Emunah.
So Moshe Emes means Moshe Neman?
Why do we say Moshe Emes? Well, first of all, who said Moshe Emes?
Korach.
Right, I'm saying it's out of the Chumash. Moshe Emes is Teres Emes. What it means to say, is that Moshe Rabbeinu, with his Emunah, was the carrier of Emes. Let me explain it simpler. Avram Avinu was shoylel every avodah zarah, meaning, like Pirush Hadavar is that there is ein oid b'vadai. 100, like if you have any suffix, like I'm going to daven, and I'm also going to make sure, like I'm not a friar, right? I'm going to daven. I'm going to cover my bases there. And I'm also going to make sure so that I'm going to, like Menashe, like you said, or like even working for a living, which everybody should do, in my opinion, almost everybody. But that can be a big mitzvah, or it can be like I want to cover my bases just in case God doesn't work. So the right way to God works. Of course, if we work, right? The right thing is, okay, what's in Hashem is that we should, for whatever reason, since the klal of Adabarisha, we have to be Lelebiyagi at Kapenu. But it doesn't go without HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there is, what Avram Avinu did by knocking down the iconoclastic, literally iconoclastic, I mean somebody who breaks idols. So Avram Avinu was literally an iconoclast. He actually broke the idols of his father's house. What he breaking idols means that there's that Einoid Bilvadai, Efes Biltacha. There is nothing else. There's mamish nothing else. So that's Efes. If I know that I'll give you another good example of this because I think it's just so important. Ava hatluya bedavar, Mishnah talks about. Ava atluya bedavar. Is that real Ava? To make it gross, if you love me for my money, if you love me for my beauty, if you love me for my yichus, if you love me for my personality, if you love me for any of these things, then then it's an Ava shetluya bedavar. It's not Neman. Why? Because batla siba, batla time, batla Ava. Like, okay, well, what happens when I lose my money? What happens when I lose my beauty? What happens when I lose it? The Ava is not real. So what does it mean? An Ava which is real, an Ava which is Emes, is an Ava which is not totally in anything. Eino tluya b'davar. Once it's Eino tluya b'davar, it's forever. It's not, there's nothing that can. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emes. Ein Emes k'amitas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's nothing more Emes than Hashem himself, because he's not totally in anybody.
Isn't that a reason? Isn't that a reason to love him?
No. Good. I'm with you.
So, but that reason can't go away. That's why it's...
You mean you talk about the mitzvah of Avos Hashem?
Yeah, you're saying it's not to live anything. But it's a reason.
No, I'm not. You're bridging what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Ava, in order for Ava to be called Ava, it has to be not dependent on anything. So we're talking about independent concepts. That's all I'm saying. A midah has to be completely independent in order for it to be a midah, a real midah, a midah of Emes. That's all I'm saying. I once heard this. I've been struggling with this for years and years. I once went to Dafka Cholamayid Sukkah. Actually, I was by the Yom Kippur War, so I went home I went home and I got stuck. There was no planes coming back. Right after I was supposed to go to Yom Kippur, I was supposed to be in America, and then Sukkot, and then I was supposed to come back for the Zman, like everybody else, to come to Yeshiva. I'd already been here. I just went home so there's no planes after Sukkot. There was no planes. There was no way to go back. So I was stuck in New York, but I couldn't leave New York. I had to live in New York, but I couldn't leave New York because I had to be by the airport. Any minute there could be a plane. So that was the way it was at that time. So where was I? I found myself in Flatbush, right next to Chai Berlin, and every night of Cholamayid Sukkot, it was like this wonderful experience. Rav Hutner, like Tzadik Livracha, would say over a mimer. And it was like a whole mystique about this thing because Like, is he Segabiver? Is he not Segabiver? There were people with beepers in those days. You got to beep. It is coming, not coming. And he isn't. Like, it's like a big thing. I don't know why I did that, but that's what we did. So I remember one of the times this stuck in my mind from that tkufa. He said that the chiyuv of mahu afata, of emulating HaKadosh Baruch Hu, besides for the details of it, which mahu rachum, afata tia rachum, mahu chanun, afata tia chanun. Besides for those details, there's the most important thing is that just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is completely independent, you have to be completely independent. And I couldn't wrap my brain around this. What does it even mean? And the Lashon, Rav Hutner said, and where do we see this? Mahu emes afata tia emes. Like so I'm understanding a little bit. What does it mean to be independent? You're supposed to be dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what he meant is that anybody who's swayed at all by anything, anybody who's swayed by anything, kavod, money, power, whatever it is, whatever it is you're swayed by. Anybody who's swayed by anything is not emes. You can't rely on that person.
But you're always consulting with people and getting opinions and advice.
But then you don't listen. Meaning that if there's any negias, you're not going to ask the person advice, right? So that's why, exactly because of this, what you're saying. So Rav Chaim Volozhin says there in Pirkei Avos, the Ruach Chaim, Pirkei Avos, he says that marba eitza, marba tfuna. So what do you mean marba tfuna? What do you mean marba eitza? Asking a whole bunch of people. What are you doing? So he says marba eitza. He says the pshat is that you should ask a lot of people. Va'asei kasichlocha. And myself, you should do what your own seichel tells you to do because. Good. He's talking about everybody. Like sof kol sof, there could be a negias, even the slightest little negias. Humans have negias. So, but there's a chiyuv on a person to be emes. Mahu emes afata ti emes. Like, so now I'm understanding. It's not so. At the time, it was like this is
an aid la'atzmo. Emes is an aid la'atzmo. It's not talui by anything.
It can't be talui. If it's talui, it's not emes. That's the.
I understand. It's a topic disaster. We by definition are depending on kaviyachol. So
only.
Right. So then how?
That's what he meant. He meant only. But if you have any other thing that you're dependent on, any other piece of gashrus, let's say you have a codependency psychologically with another person, the person's not reliable. The only thing you're allowed to be dependent on is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how
do we talk about a person as emes? Like Tita Emes Yaakov,
in other words, a person is not emes unless you're holding Einoid Bovada.
So when we say Tita Emes Yaakov, we're calling Yaakov as emes.
Yeah.
So I didn't say that. Who said? Micha says Tita Emes Yaakov.
Micha.
Okay. So what does he mean in the pasuk when he says Tita Emes Yaakov?
Okay. So let's think about it. I don't know. I didn't think about it, but I did think about it. I just gave 4 shiur about it, but l'chara. Why was Yaakov emes? I think that the pshat, offhand, it's an excellent question, deserves to be answered. I think the pshat is that Avram Avinu had a leaning towards chesed, so that Gufa became a negias. Gufa became a negias. Like Yitzchak had a leaning towards Gevura, so that Gufa became so it was the whole pshat the Akedah spoke about a few years ago. You had to put the chesed and Gevura together until you got a Tiferes. Titein emes li'Yaakov means that I'm not being swayed this way, I'm not being swayed that way. I'm just going with the emes. So there's complete independence of. So if you want to find a balaitzi, you want to find somebody who has no negias, right? If you want to find somebody who's emes, you have to find somebody who's like Ramish holding Einoid Movadai. The beautiful thing about holding Einoid Movadai is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cooperates with us. Meaning, the more a person, the Rambam himself says, the more a person holds in the Einoid Movadai and is not swayed by anything, the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Hashgacha Pratis works for that person. But that's like about the Schar B'tzida. But even if a person does a mitzvah shaloi l'shma, it's not emes. It's not emes. Something, do it shaloi l'shma, so you get to l'shma. But that's not our goal. We don't want to get stuck with shaloi l'shma. We made it into like the whole religion, the Shlit'a. We don't get stuck with Shlit'a. The Shlit'a Like it becomes like, doing it l'shma. What do you think I'm a tzaddik or something? No, it's no. I mean, everybody's supposed to do mitzvahs l'shma. Every once in a while, I'll do shalai l'shma, get into the good habit of doing mitzvahs. But it's not emes. Why is it an emes? Because it's already it's al benas l'kabel schar. Once it's al benas, you've already messed up the whole emes shibadaber. You with me on this? Yeah. So okay. So. Let's look here at the Yesod HaRishon. Metzias Habar Yishtabach. That's the Yesod HaRishon. Just that. So you read that quick, and you say that Metzias Habar Yisbarach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a Metzias. God is real. But the Rambam explains. What's the lashon of the Ani Mamin? The first one. Anybody know if I heard?
Remember the Brunish Lema?
There's a negative about it. What?
Should we sing it?
Say it every day.
We could sing it.
Ani Mamin B'Emunah Shalema Shabari Yisparach Shmaihu Boirei Umanhig L'chol Habruyim. And this is supposed to be a synopsis of what we're going to learn. Let's see if it is. Metzias Habar Yishtabach V'hu means Sheyesh Sham. Matzui, you're already stuck when I was learning. What's a Sham here? So you know what Sham means?
Exists.
In what language?
Arabic.
That's correct. As the Kesef Mishnah says, he says because the same lashon of the Rambam and the Yad, he says it can't mean Sham. It must be an Arabic word. He said it must be an Arabic word. But Sheyesh Sham Matsui B'Shleimus Eifane Hametzias. V'hu, just read a little bit. Ilas Metzius Kol Hanimtzayim. Metzius means, what does the word Metzius mean? That's easier than Sham. Existence. Zanimtza. It's a funny word. Metzius. It's a Metzius. It's the facts on the ground. Fact.
Reality.
Fact. Reality. Fact. Right? So, but this is hu ilas. Ilas means the cause, siba. Hu ilas mitzius kol hanimtzayim. Agav, just want to point out that he used this fancy word, hu ilas. When the Rambam went over it in the Kapach edition, he changed it to hu sibas.
But it's an active word. It's not a passive word. It's something that you have to do.
What do you mean? His mitzius is the cause of every other mitzius. Meaning anything that you consider to be a mitzius, let's just stick to this through for a second. Anything you consider the source of all mitzius, the source of all facts is the fact. He's the fact that made all the facts happen. Ubo kiyu mitziusam, and then he takes it further. Not only did he cause every fact or every reality to be real, he also causes it to continue to exist. Umimenu nimshach lahem akiyum, and from that original Metzias comes out more emes. So this is obviously where the payut here has asa osa v'yasa l'chol hamaysim. But I think he's oversimplifying a little bit what the Rambam saying. I think you should forgive me. I don't know who he is. Osa, like if you read this, it's okay. He made the world, or Osa is present, right? Hu levadei Osa v'yasa l'chol hamaysim. He made everything. He makes everything. Continues to make everything, and he will make everything. Is that what do you think that's what the Rambam is saying here? I'll just ask you this. Hu ilas mitzias kol hanimtzayim, uboy kiyu mitziusam. Umimenu nimshach lahem hakiyum. Yeah, I hear the but
That's where
He
that's
calls
where that's
them-
coming from.
He calls them Maasim. It's always along one action.
Right?
I mean, what does Ma'asim have to do with it?
He's saying that it's not.
Ma'aser means
nothing else
what?
really is
Men
needed
are
as
named
much as it
Shachlahem
relates to
Akiyum
Hashem's
Yaseh.
Maaseh
That's where
creation.
he's getting it from.
Only Ma'asim means
We
deeds.
are Maasim.
Ma'asim
That's
means
the
things that are
stage.
made.
That this means that we are Maasim.
I think L'chol Ma'asim is already taking off.
That's his period.
Yeah, it's a parish.
That's how he's getting it. That's it.
Like, what does the Rambam say? U'betzias kol ha'libsayim. U'ilas betzias kol ha'libsayim. He's caused everything to exist. In other words, nothing would exist without for Hashem. Here, nothing would exist. Not this, not me, not you, nothing.
You're still
What?
existing now.
It seems to be very similar to the first bracha Shemona Esrei. Created everything.
I mean, it's the first pasuk in the Torah. Gracious bara l'kivas ha'shavai v'sar.
No, this has the.
No, this is specific to the
So-
past, present, and future. No, they're
That's
saying-
true, but he's I don't want to catch on it too much. But who Elas Mitzias Kol Ha'Litzayim? He's we're talking about the Mitzias of Hashem. The ikar here is. Let me tell you what I'm trying to say. The ikar here is not about the fact that the past, future, and present is created by Hashem. The ikar here is Mitzias Habayri Yisbarach, that Hashem is a Mitzias, and Hashem is a Mitzias, and therefore Hashem is the only Mitzias. That's what he's saying. He is deity. What he's saying is Hashem is the only Mitzias.
Right, not a Mitzias,
Everything
but the
else,
Mitzias.
what?
Not a Mitzias, but the Mitzias.
He is the Mitzias, and anything that you see is a Mitzias, right? Is not really a Mitzias. Who ilas kol Mitzias? It's only Mitzias because Hashem is a Mitzias. Meaning, if Hashem would cease to exist, whatever that means, so then that Mitzias would no longer exist. So, like I'm imagining, like you're standing in front of a mirror and you're looking at your image in the mirror and you're saying, "Oh, that's a Mitzias. There's a Mitzias there." Until you walk away, not there anymore. Did anybody notice that?
Always check back to make sure.
Was it real? Yeah. But it's, right.
That's
So
what he calls the Maasim. I'm just taking away the themselves of the son created by Hashem.
So 1 second. So what we're saying here is that what we're
Oh, he says the next one. Sorry.
okay. The ilu. Okay, he spells it out for us. The ilu the tires siluk mitziusai. Yaz batla mitzius kol nibsa. Well, yishru kayav mitzius. There wouldn't be any mitzius if Hashem would cease to exist, because there's no mitzius without Hashem. The ilu the tires siluk kol halibsai zulas. On the other hand, if you would take away everything that seems to exist, and they would all go away. Azloi tevato mitziusai yisala. You're taking away the mirror. It doesn't mean that the person is not there anymore. Nothing would be missing. Kihu yisala, and this is really the key. Kihu yisala bilti zakuk b'mtziusay l'zikzulasay. Totally not dependent on any other mitzias. That's a mitzias. The mitzias of Hashem is that he's completely not dependent on any other thing, but everything is dependent on him. So therefore, he's a mitzias, and nothing else is really a mitzias. It's the whole world's as much of a mitzias as the mirror. It's not really a mitzias. The only mitzias is Hashem, because if he walks out of here, then there's nothing. If everybody else walks out of here, there's still Hashem. So he's not totally in anything. So if you want to know what a mitzias is, and what I'll show you something in the Rambam in a minute. V'chol ma shezulasai min hashacholim. Kolaymer, shacholim means the not scholim. Shacholim, all the workings under the hood. Kolaymer hamalochim, garmei hagalgalim, like gravity and things like that. Umashalamata mehem, right? The mazolos, let's say, all of those things, right? All of the different forces of nature. All of the different hakol zokuk b'mtziusay alav. They're all. It's like the light, like you unplug it, it's not there. Like the light is totally in the electricity. The electricity's there, whether there's a light, whether it's coming lamaisa with the light or it's not, whether that circuit is coming lamaisa or not. So that's a different shaila. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do that? Because maybe the electricity has more mashmos if it has a light coming out of it. But the point is that the light is totally in the electricity. Electricity is not totally in the light.
Doesn't that tell you something very deep about the things that we actually experience then? We're not really experiencing the light, we're experiencing the reality in which that light is existing. Okay. We experience something, right? So we're not, so...
What is our experience?
There's only one Metzius.
There is Ein Ein Milvado. Ein Ein Milvado. V'zeh Yisod HaRishon Hu Asher Moira Lav Diber Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I just want to show you something. The Rambam in the Yad, the very first Rambam that he wrote, Yisod HaYisodos, the Amud HaChachmas, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yisod HaYisodos and Vi Amud HaChachmas. Leda is to know Sheyeh Sham. Sham Matsui Rishon. This is a little bit clearer. The Yad. V'hu. What? Yeah, that's why it's a little clear. Later, Sheyeh Sham Matsui Rishon. V'hu Mamsi Kol Hanimtza. V'chol Hanimtzaim. Min Shamayim V'aretz Uma B'neihem. Lo Nimtzu Ela Me'amitas Himtza'oi. Nothing exists except for, because of, here he introduces a new word, Ella me amitas. It all comes from the emes of him sa'oi. All existence is talui in the emes of the Metzius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? So he introduced emes here, the word emes. The amitas himatzai, meaning that emes. Here's what I see. That's why I get the introduction about emes. That emes means that it's a very, very real concept. It is not dependent on anything. That light is not 100% emes because the light can go out any second, and it often does. Electricity could go out any second, and it often does it, and back and back and back until you get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only thing that's not going to go out here is HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Same with everything. The stars.
Everything.
Yeah.
Stars. They can fall. Everything.
Creation.
The whole creation. Everything except for Hashem is dependent on Hashem. So the only thing that's real over here, it's like if you come to a, I'm thinking like if you come to a company, you get a job, you come to a company, the guy starts giving you orders. So you got to think to yourself, like, are you real? Like, are you really the one I have to listen to? So okay, yes, but you're only a shliach of this one. He's only a shliach of that one. Like, you have to ultimately get to the head of the company. Not saying you should listen, but it's not really emes that he's your boss. He's only your boss because he's made so by somebody else. So the real emes guy there is the one who nobody can fire. That's the real emes one. So the only ein oid milvadoi is amitas himtzoi. So the Rambam further. And if you would think for a moment, and he's just really being marich on the lashon of the Rambam in the Pirush Mishnayos, if you'll consider for on your dash Yehu Einoi Matsui, that what would happen if Hashem would cease to exist? Ein davar achar yachalim tzais. Nothing. Nobody's standing in front of the mirror. Nothing to. Bim ya'ala ala das is the Rambam Vayter shein kol anim tzayim milvadoi mitzuyim. And if you'll consider that everything in the world would cease to exist for a moment, doomsday, right? Everything stops existing. Hu levado yeh, he will still exist. Lo yivatel hu lebitulam, he's not batal in their bittul. Right? Shekol anim soyim tzrichim loy v'hu baruch hu eina tzrich lahem loy le'achan memi. Hashem means nothing. And that's what makes a memes. Lefichach, listen to these words, beautiful. Lefichach, ein amitasai ka'amitas achan mehem. I love the word emes. No, what can emes? What can emes mean here? Ein amitasai. Your emes, I'm emes, the candle's emes, the wine's emes, but nothing is as emes as he's emes, because everything is relying on something else. Everything is totally in something else. This is totally in oxygen. Everything's totally in something, except for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's totally in nothing. And even if everything would cease to exist, so that's emes. So if you want to be emes, this is, I think, the messenger of what you want to be emes. have to be completely independent. Nothing is pulling me. Nothing is pulling me except for what's emes, which ultimately comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But that's impossible for humans. Isn't it possible to have nothing pulling?
Well, because we're totally in Hashem, but you don't have to have anything in between.
So why do you partake in anything that is here?
Because Hashem's not told us to. In other words, Hashem wants the world to work, but the Yesod Harishon is that Husha Navi Omer, and this. So, I mean, I hate to keep on saying this. I don't really hate to. I mean, it's Husha Navi Omer Hashem Elokim Emes. This is what the Navi meant when he said that Hashem is Emes. Hu levadoi ha-emes, mein la'acher emes ka'amitoi. It's all about emes. What does emes have to do with matzah? Total, and he explains it, again, sikum. Total lack of dependency on anything. Totally independent is emes. The moment that you're dependent, you're not emes. A little bit emes maybe, because the more independent you are, the more emes you are. But ain't emes ka'amitoi. That works together with what the Torah says, Ein oid milvadai. Think about those words for a second. Is that true? Is that true?
Yes.
Chaim's here. Elazar's here. What do you mean, Ein oid milvadai?
On a permanent basis.
Nothing else is emes. Koloimar, Ein sham matsui emes milvadai kamoisai. Hamatzui hazeh, this is an arichas compare. Hamatzui hazeh hu elikai ha'olam adain kol ha'aretz. V'hu hamanhig hagalgal b'koyach shein lo kates v'tachlis. V'koyach shein lo hefsik. You can rely on the spinning of the world. I was very pleased to read this. It's a reliable thing. Yom v'layla lo yishpos. I got to stop. There's going to be morning. There's going to be night. Baruch kechama. Baruch kechama. Such a concept. You can rely on the fact that the sun will come up tomorrow morning. Nothing will happen. Baruch Hashem. Hagalgal soivev tami v'yafshir sheyisay b'loy masavev. V'hu baruch hu ha'masavev v'yisay b'loy yad v'loy guf. The Yediyas Davar Zeh, finally, we're in a halacha vav. This is all one paragraph from the Yediyas Davar Zeh, knowing this, mitzvahs esei shenemar anoichi Hashem elikecha. That's the mitzvah of the first of the 10 Commandments, anoichi Hashem elikecha. V'chol amai lo al daitoi sheyesh sham eleha acher chutz mizeh over b'loisa sei shenemar lo yelech elehim acher mal ponai. So it's Gavaldik. What's the problem with Avodah Zarah? It's not the pshat that I'm doing some kind of an Avera. Of course you're doing an Avera, but that's not the issue. The issue is not emes. You're saying, the minute that you say that there's a possibility of some other koach in this world that I should worship, so what you're saying is that there's some other reality other than Hashem. And then you're saying that HaKadosh Baruch is not the Kol Yachol. He's no longer the reality. He's no longer emes. It's a shtickle emes.
What does Shituf mean?
So we got to talk about Shituf. What does that mean?
You can do somebody else's.
When I learned some brisk for a little bit of time, so the Rebels Soloveitchik used to always say, whenever a person tells you the Dvar Torah, and he says, Ich mein as emes, ever hear anybody say that? It's a simon, it's not emes.
What does it mean?
I believe it's true. I believe it's true.
I hold this as emes. You know, the people always say that because they feel insecure that it's not emes. In other words, no, there's an obek here, because Ich mein as emes means that I'm right away totally and you agreeing with me for this to be emes. Like I need to. Yeah.
Right?
Right. Right? All right?
Like someone says, you could trust me.
Yeah.
I'm not this guy.
No, I would imagine like, the President of the United States giving like a whole policy speech and then he goes, right?
I can hear that as an expression of humility, but if somebody's come up with their own chiddush, if somebody's come up with something that's their own chiddush, they, you can understand that there's a certain humility that they're saying, this sounds true to me. Can you independently verify that this is good?
Okay. Okay. Just, okay. Oh, so what's Emunah now? But so we say Emes and Mariv, right? Emes ve'Emunah, Kolzois. Emes ve'Emunah. So that's, I believe that this means what Rav Hutner said, that the Emes has to have a bias, and the bias is called Emunah.
How can an Eved be Ne'eman? An Eved is always dependent. And if we define the Emunah as loyal, okay.
That's the Avera, right? If you leave in Yisrael Avodim. Avodayim v'loy avodim la'avodim. That's good for the Avera. Oizen sheshama al har Sinai, right? So no, but it's a new spin, Rabbi say, on Avodah Zarah. Like, oh, it's terrible, you're worshiping an idol. Like, it's not a matter of like, that's a terrible thing to do, like worship an idol. It is a terrible thing to do. But the Nekuda is, you're taking away from, in other words, you're showing that you're not holding by the Mashiach Hashem. I want to point out something that the Ramban pretty much says that the chet of the Dor Haflaga, those are the guys that built the Tower of Babel, was that they were trying to create a different reality than the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Ramban says, let's build a tower, and we're going to go up to Shemayim, and that's a Lanu shade. It will be like they didn't want to live within the reality of MS. We'll create a new MS. Right?
I hear you.
Thomas.
Yeah. The Yedias Davar Mitzvah Sation Amar Nochi Hashem Lekecha V'Chol HaMayla Al Daite Sheyesh Shem Lekai Acher Chutz Mizeh Over B'Loisa say, if you don't take in this Metzias of Hashem, so Avodah Zarah is a chesaron in the Metzias, understanding the Metzias of if you worship Avodah Zarah also, so then you're not doing the Metzias Hashem. I just tell you, let's take a break for a quick halacha. The Ramah says, based on Rabbeinu Tam, famous Ramah, that we have to believe in Hashem, obviously, and one of the Zayin mitzvahs B'nai Noach is to believe in Hashem. But for Goyim, it's okay to believe in Shituf, dualism, or in Christian terminology, a Trinity. Prefer triplicate rather than two. But I mean, dualism is an old Alter Zach, right?
Isn't dualism like good versus bad?
That's where it comes from. Where it comes from, even in Christianity, that's what it means. In other words, that you can't Zoroastrianism. It can't be that the same. I mean, this is the answer to the question, to the easy answer, the wrong answer to the question of why do the righteous suffer? Easy. There's two gods. It can't be the same God that does all the good and makes babies be born and makes people happy and makes the flowers so pretty. Can't be the same one making a Holocaust. So the only answer is there must be two gods. So that's the God of good, there's the God of evil. In Christian terminology, so if somebody does something wrong, the devil maybe do it. So they've got another, like the Yetzer Hara becomes like a reality unto itself. You take your Yetzer Hara out of their free choice, and the devil maybe do it. But there's some other reality. So it's a very interesting thing that al pi halacha, the Zayin mitzvahs B'nai Noach, so we have to believe this. Simple, there's one Hashem and he's the only Metzias, and here's another. But if a guy is b'shatef davar acher im HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's some kind of a dualistic or polytheistic or Zoroastrian or whatever they called it in the particular generation that we're in. If you believe in some, by the way, Kishuv, all those things, the same thing. Like there's some other power. Things are abused. Even holy things could be abused. If you understand that the Beis Hamikdash, the Kaisel has powers. If you understand that a certain Rebbe or a Chacham has powers, you're missing the point. There's only one reality in this world. Okay, very good. But why is it okay for a guy? The Ramah says, based on Rabbeinu Tam, the beginning of Avodah Zarah, that Umas Ha'olam Einam Nizharim ala Shituf. Goyim are allowed to believe in Shituf. So I don't know the answer why it's okay, but I just want to put a limit on it. The Rabbi Yehuda says in Reish Chaf in Yeridea, this like blew me away. Rabbi Yehuda says a halacha that goyim are allowed to believe in Shituf, but they're not allowed to worship it. Even a guy is over design mitzvahs noyach if they worship, let's say, Yashka. They can believe in it. The difference is that if you worship something, if you pray to something, so what are you saying?
They have power.
That they have power. Like, in other words, what a guy believes philosophically, that the reality is divided to 2, to 3, to 50, like what the Greeks believe thousands. Okay, it's a Hashem's mechanism. What's going on? The minute I'm praying to that, so what I'm saying is that I'm no longer dependent on Hashem. I'm changing the whole reality. So says the Rabbi Yehuda that don't think just because a guy is allowed to believe in Shituf, is allowed to worship that Shituf. I never made that chiluk in my life.
That's also the position between Emes and Emunah. In other words, Emes is the Mitzias. Emunah is how a person relates to that. Gisha, and how he gets to that.
Right.
So a person...
Emunah is koilot tefillah.
I was also always told that Emes is knowing and Emunah is believing.
I don't think that's true. Emes, ihi emes, ihi emunah. Ihi emes, ihi emunah. It's got to be the same thing.
You're supposed to be able
by the way, I don't know that emunah means believing at all. I'm not sure that it all means like to believe. But
the Torah was given on Sinai.
Like people say emunah is like to have faith.
The Torah was given on Sinai.
Know it, Leda. The Rambam says by each one of these things, Leda sheyesham. See, if you believe something, so that means that there's a suffix, but this is what I believe. I believe you're an honest man. Do I know it? How do I know it? So this is not good enough when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to
believe. Translation. The Torah was given us. That's only because
it's the idea. If you're not, you're up a curse.
Yeah. So is that another tying on the 13 animamis?
No, we're saying in English for believe is not.
What do you mean?
No, I'm saying
it's not the word.
Believe. It's not as good as your
animamin.
No, the translation isn't right. Animamin means I know.
Right, I was just saying maybe that's one.
Right.
No, but he's saying maybe mamin doesn't mean believe.
No, but it does.
It means no.
He's saying
colloquially we say
the whole Bible believes believe.
It's mistranslated.
But mamin doesn't mean
it doesn't.
Let's see, Leda. I tell you what means faith.
We don't have really such a great word for it.
Faith is betachon. Different zach. Like betachon, but the emunah is the base kibbul of emes, and that's not betachon. Betachon, different story. Like what it could have said ani mamin. I don't know what mamin means, but what it could have said is ani yodea, and maybe that's what mamin means. As Stefan says. Right.
No, in the Rambam, you bring with the
Leda.
It says
Leda. Leda. He said Leda. So the Rambam keeps on saying Leda v'yedia stavers. Listen, v'yedia stavers mitzvah essay.
So the Rambam holds
knowing something is a mitzvah essay. Believing is something I'm doing with my heart. Believing. The Torah says Yedia stavers. He's ani mamin.
The Rambam wouldn't have written it this way. He would have written ani mamin. He would have written ani yodea. Probably.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what I believe, anyway.
I believe you are correct. Let's go to the before Yesod Hasheni, because the Rambam and the Yad goes straight along. So this becomes very practical and very lamaisa. First, a little bit philosophical. It's hard to. It's a new. By the way, everything we're saying, I don't think is complicated or difficult. It's just different than the way people think. That's what makes it difficult. So, like, if you think about a Metzius. Like like if you say there's only here's Sikum. There's only one Metzius in the world, Metzius of Hashem. You're here, I'm here. So there's a lot of Metzius. But those Metzius then aren't really called Metzius because they're dependent on a bigger Metzius. So is that a Metzius? It's not Emes. It's not a Metzius of Emes.
You have to be able to see Hashem through all these Metzius.
The Seder. It's a good. But what I'm trying to say is that Metzius, the work, the active words here are Metzius and Emes. Those are the words, and Yediyah. So knowing something, fact. Metzius, fact. Emes, fact. Is the light a fact? It's not a fact because it's not necessarily going to be there,
He
and it wasn't always there either.
He differentiates Metzias and Nimsa'im. Nimsa'im, we're the Nimsa'im, we're not the Metzias.
So that's Emunah. So look at the Yisod Hasheni. Let's make it a little bit clearer. Yisod Hasheni, Achdusa Yisala. Now, is this a new concept here? That Hashem is Echad, or is it the same concept? What's the pasuk? Very good. Baki in Tanakh. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. There's two Yisodos there, for number one and number two. Shema Yisrael, put that aside for a second. Hashem Elokeinu, Yisod Aleph. Hashem Echad, Yisod Beis. Perfect. Beautiful pasuk. It has two ikrim, two animamins. Shema Yisrael, Shema, the Rambam. Did anybody here ever like crack a Mar Nevuchim? Yeah, so like the Mar Nevuchim in the back. So I always had Seder Mar Nevuchim, but so we got through Mar Nevuchim. But it's a very if you look at the Torah Zadaf, it looks a little bit like a Mishnah Berurah. Actually, you can get through Mar Nevuchim, but it's not such a bad. But in the section of the Mar Nevuchim is like a dictionary, like a lexicon of words that he uses often and that the Torah uses often. So there he describes certain words. So one of the words he describes is Shema. Shema. So what does Shema mean? Like, hear, O Israel. Understand.
No.
No. Understand. The Rambam says it. Shema Yisrael. Leida. Leida.
And that's why it's Yisrael, because
Nasa v'nishma. Very good. Who said that? Nasa v'nishma. Very good. Very good. Nasa v'nishma. Shema. But you're only asking that kasha because you're used to saying Shema means to hear. But that's not what it means.
That's a bad English translation.
Toshma.
No, nowadays it doesn't for sure.
Right, so like there's Hazana. The Rambam says Hazana is when you just hear something, listening.
So modern Hebrew.
Shema means like
To understand, maybe.
Incorporate.
Okay, that's a good. Let's leave that question aside for a second because it's too difficult of a question for me. But Tashma. So to say the Bavli says Tashma. Whatever the Yerushalmi speaks, it says Pukhazi. We use a different. Take a look. Zayar also Pukhazi.
You see clearly.
So Achdusa Yisala. No, this is this thing that if there's more than one Hashem, so right away it can't be Amos. Then it's not a Messias anymore. Lafi Dvarenu. If you're missing, if there's more than one Hashem, if you don't have Echad, so then okay, well maybe there's something else. Right away you're a dualist. And then once there's something else, so then it's not a Messias anymore.
That's without Shema Yisrael, because we have the sort of duality that you can
right. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, which is more seichel. In other words, all we're saying with that Goyim aren't Mitzuva and Achdos Hashem is that you're permitted to be a tippish. That's all we're saying. We're not saying that there's truth to that too. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that okay, like you're not. What's the problem? You're not believing in Judaism? Basement. No, you're not believing in Judaism. So you're not believing the Zayin Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So Achdusa Yisala v'hu shezeh ilas hakol echad. There's only one cause over here. Like Achdus, and now the Rambam gives us choices. Like Achdus Hamin, not like one species. Like that's like one, but it's divided by. There's the species of reptiles, but there are millions of reptiles, right? So like Achdus Hamin, but like Achdus Hasug. What's Achdus Hasug? What's the difference between Sug and Amin?
Quality.
Right. So in the Kapach, Rambam says like Achdus Hazug. That's nice, though. Like if you're a couple, like we're one. Right? So it's we're one, but we're not really one. Like it's Achdus Hazug, but it's one. Like certain things we're one, but we're not really one. Like Achdus Hazud, let's say. Whatever you want. Like Davar Ha'echad. What?
It's a sub-level of it.
Sug. If you say Sug. Yeah, but if you say Zug, it's like different Geshua. Like Davar Ha'echad Hamurkav Shumischalik La'chadim Rabim. So they'd say this is, let's do it on a scientific level. This is one glass, but it's made up of millions of molecules, right? So it's Achadim Rabim. Comes together nicely, but that's the point. It comes together nicely. V'loi echad it's so interesting that the only way to define one is by saying what it's not. V'loi echad ki guf ha'pashut shu echad b'mispar. V'loi echad ki guf ha'pashut shu echad b'mispar. Me. I will makabel al chaluka va'pitzalad b'lisai. There's a million parts, you know. I was just quoting my father, Olav Shalom, today. Every car has at least 10,000 parts, and they all can break. So you think you fix this, you fix that. Okay, you're positive. No, another 9,999 parts to go. Elohu Yisale, the only thing that's really echad is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hu Yisale echad, achdus shein achdus k'mayu v'shum panim. The Yisod Hasheni, Mayra Lo Mashanever Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Let's read it in the Yad. The Yad says, Elokai Zeh, I'm just continuing, Halach Hazayim, Elokai Zeh, this God that we're talking about, Echadu, as we just said. Einoi loy shnayim v'lo yeser al shnayim elo echad she'en ki yifudai echad min ha'achadim hanimtzoim ba'olam. There is no other echad like the echad of Hashem. Just like there's no other Metzias. So it comes out, interesting, not only the only Metzias in the world is Hashem, but there's only one Metzias. Loy echad keminshu koil achadim harbe v'loy echad kiguf shu neflak lemachlokos l'ksavos. He skips the sugs of thing. Elo yichud she'en yichud acher k'maisoi ba'olam. So echad, and he introduces yichud. Elo yichud she'en yichud acher k'maisoi. Yichud, like yachad, is the opposite of echad. Yachad means you're taking two things and you're putting them together. So shenish echad. Yichud is a little different. Ilu hayu elakus harbe. Oh, no, well, he's getting into the next thing. But here, I want to ask you this. I want to bring this in a very real place here. Achdus Hashem. It seems to be very important. We say Shema Yisrael, as he says. That's the pasuk he goes on to say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's the pasuk he brings here. That's the pasuk he brings here. What do we learn from Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? What are you supposed to do when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad?
Block everything else. And you block everything else out.
So yeah, and you block everything else out. It's a Mishnah. Mishnah Brachas. The Mishnah Brachas says that first you should be Makabel O Malchus Shamayim by saying what? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad B'chulu. And then you should be Makabel O Mitzvahs. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is Kabbalas O Malchus Shamayim. So the Gemara says, I just looked at the Gemara. The Gemara tells a story here. Well, the Mishnah says, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Lama Kadma Parsha Shema Levahayim Shemai Kadeshi Kabbalah Olav O Malchus Shamayim Tchila. First be Makabel O Malchus Shamayim. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is Kabbalas O Malchus Shamayim. Then the Gemara says, Amaisa. The Gemara says, it says, Rabbi Yirmiyah Havi Yosef Kamei de Rabbi Chia. The Rabbi Yirmiyah, who is an interesting Tana, was sitting in front of Rabbi Chia. Chazia to have a kamarich tuva. And he saw that he was being marich to Rashi says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and he was going on for like maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right?
613 commandments.
Okay, wow. Marich Tuva. I don't know how long, what the Shiur of Tuva. Amar Leiser, Rabbi Yirmiyah said to him, stop already. Kividam lachte lamala ulamata ula'arba ruches hashemayim tu loitzrichas. What are you doing already? Like, you have to be mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu lamala, lamata, like our nanuyim. Ula'arba ruches hashemayim. So I mentioned in Shul, the Yehuda, Rav Kook, brings from Rav Kook that it's all the same thing. The nanuyim of the lulav is all the same thing as Kabbalah Ol Malchus Shemayim, which the Gemara says Kabbalah. Right, left, up, down, all around. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is really everywhere. Right. So that's the. So he said to him, "What are you doing? Like, isn't it like? Would you correct somebody on this? Like, what? Sulait Tzrichas. That's the end of the story. So there's two kashas here. Number one is the most important thing. How do you get from Hashem Echad to Kabbalah Ol Malchus Shemayim? Let's just understand it because we do this twice a day. How do you get? In other words, a davar pashut in the Mishnah that when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, what you're doing there, what you're doing there is you're being makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim. Lama. I'm pronouncing a philosophical truth.
What is Ol Malchus Shemayim?
Okay.
It's not Ol Mitzvahs, it's something else.
Not Ol Mitzvahs. So what's Ol Malchus Shemayim? What is it?
That knowing.
Who's asking what? What is it?
That means that there is only one Ol Malchus Shemayim.
Well, he's Echad, then he's the Melech. If he's the Echad, then you don't have any say. You're a part of him. You're just directed to him. He's the Melech, and you're.
Rabbi says, isn't it beautiful? Think about it. Like, what is Kabbalah Ol Malchus Shemayim? It's being Maimin Hashem Echad. That's what the Mishnah says.
Why is that an O?
Meaning, I'll tell you what.
It limits you. You're only as much as you're connected to him.
No, important. Oil is mitzvahs. What's the nachan oil?
Well, he has an ability to give us mitzvahs.
Duality, everything else you're rolling.
Let's not skip. Too fast. This point is the Gemara's point is profound. Like you go over this Mishnah. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Once I say that there's only Shema Yisrael, Hashem, first of all, there's two parts to the puzzle. Hashem Elokeinu, which now we learned in the Rambam. The Rambam is going to taught us there's only one Metzias here. There's only one Metzias, and the Metzias is not my boss, my wife, my husband. That's not the Metzias. The Metzias is Hashem. And there's only one Hashem. And it's not like you can't subdivide, divide by three, no, nothing. One Hashem, one. So this is my situation here. What am I in this? What am I in this except for an Eved? So the Rambam says a lashon in the Pirush HaMishnayos. In the Rambam says a lashon I have here that he says that. Well, let's just say Pasha. I'll Rambam's lashon in a second. All Malchus Shemayim. What's Malchus? And that's the answer to your question. I'm not. What we need to understand here about God tonight is this: that let's go back. Every Kabbalah sefer in the world begins with this question: like, why did Hashem create the world? And everyone says, I'm sorry to oversimplify, everyone says the same answer. What? Later. Malchus. Malchus means Chesed Gvur Tiferes Netzach Hod Yesod Malchus. Malchus means that the completion of Toiv is only when there's a Makabel. If there's no Amunah, then the MS is like electricity without a light.
Ein Melech B'lo Am.
Ein Melech B'lo Am. How much the lashon of the Rambam? Ein Melech B'lo Am.
Why is it called an oil then?
So one second, I'm stalling on the Malchus. Malchus means that the minute that there is no other Metzias, like what's going to make a I don't know the answer to this. Like what's going to make a soldier in the the Korean army, or the Japanese army in the 1930s there? What's going to make him jump out of planes and wasn't even God. What do you mean? He's afraid he's going to get in trouble if he doesn't kill himself? Doesn't make any sense.
He
would be killed by his superiors.
But he wasn't just killing himself. He's a kamikaze.
But
What do you got to lose?
He's looking for something bigger than himself, and he's loyal to that.
He's loyal to what? Like at least like the Arabs, they think that this is a religious thing. It is a religious thing, or Jews for that matter. Why should that fish? But
loyalty is also religion.
What you're seeing there is of not by the way one or two or a hero. You're talking about hundreds of thousands. You just get mowed down to make it easier for the second line to go, and the second one you're going to get mowed down too. Go ahead, and nothing to fear but fear itself. Look at a bunch of friars, a bunch of idiots. What are they doing? Well, just turn around and go back. What are you doing? What are you're afraid about? There's one Meshuggah who's telling you to go. Where do they go? So the chat is that. Does this bother you?
Yeah.
What are you doing it for? I mean, I was around in the '60s, and I remember. This was the question I ever asked. Who told you that? Who says you have to listen? But they listen. People listen. Everybody listens. Why? Because this is Sfarim say, this is the midah of Malchus in action. It might be a warped Malchus, but it's a midah of Malchus. Ein melech b'layam. When I have no other reason for doing something, and I don't care about anything else except for the cause that I'm loyal to, so that's called Malchus. If I'm worried about even dying, so then it's already not Malchus. So Malchus means there ain't oid milvadoi. The taich of Malchus is ain't oid milvadoi. That's what it means. Doesn't mean anything else than that. Doesn't mean more, doesn't mean less. So Mekabel of Malchus Shamayim means that I'm an avid to this Malchus. Once I'm Mekabel Malchus Shamayim, now I can be Mekabel all mitzvahs. The first thing is what I am, and now what do I have to do about it? So the Mekabelas of Malchus Shamayim is putting your whole life in a perspective. This is what you have to do every time you say Shema. Every time you say Shema, you have to understand that everything that I have, everything that I can do, I don't have any independent interests. What's the independent interest? They're Einoid Movadoi. If there's Einoid Movadoi, it's not just Einoid Movadoi, nobody could hurt me because Einoid Movadoi. That may be true. Everyone thinks Einoid Movadoi, they think story to Briskerov. But Einoid Movadoi is much more than that. Einoid Movadoi is that there is no other. Hashem created a world. Why? Because Ein Melech B'lo Yam. So we're here to be the Am Hashem. But while I'm here, I'm going to go to Hawaii on vacation and take, that's okay. But nothing wrong with doing that. The halacha tells you what you're allowed to do as a Yevid, what you're not allowed to do as an Yevid. Vacations are good, yachts are okay, everything's okay, but within reason. You're married, your pleasure, everything is nice. But you have to understand that it's all not for me, it's all for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. So it's a whole different.
Isn't Malchus Basar V'Dam concept?
What do you mean Basar V'Dam concept? I mean, no. I mean, yes. Malchus is created for Basar V'Dam. But by the time you get to Malchus, which is where we're holding here in this world, so Malchus, here's the Lashon of the Zohar, which is probably one of the more famous Zohars in the world. Malchus, Leislei, Megarmei, Klum. So that's Kabbalah, so Malchus Shemaim. All Malchus Shemaim. So this is 100% totally in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Because the minute there would be two, so then it can't be Malchus. The minute there's any other interest except for the one Metzias. So what this makes us, with the Brisker Rav comes along and says, like, I was talking to somebody yesterday, maybe it was Rabbi Shaw, I don't remember who we were talking about. There's a certain It's going to be a mushal. I don't mean to be offensive, but a little bit. You know, it is real. They say achrei achadasrei medabrim fair. Ever hear that expression? Achadasrei medabrim fair. No, but I just no. There's a certain gevir that gets on my nerves. So like, the guy is a rich guy, and like I'm not talking about fabulously wealthy. And he gives away a lot of money, you know, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Who am I to judge? I'm not, but I do it anyway. So there's something different. I was complaining to his rabbi that there's something different about him than, let's say, you know, some of the Gevirim that I was zocha to meet, Reichman, Wolfson, Rechnitz, some real that. They feel a certain, like, there's certain Toradic Ashirim that feel a certain achrayus. It's more than achrayus. They have money, they have access to money, but they don't look at it as their own money. It's not mine. I mentioned at Rosh Hoshanna that the mile of the Akedah was that Avraham Avinu looked at Yitzchak and he said, "Oh, I thought it was my son. I see it's not." You're telling me it's not my son. You okay? Ask him. I thought at least that was mine. Mincha, Yechidcha, Sherahavta, Yitzchak. That's not your kach. Seder. It's not mine. It's not mine. So I give it away, like I gave away my tent, like I gave away my privacy, like I gave away everything. Comes to a point that a person understands that I have no kesher to anything. I'm just a gabbai. It's like a bank teller who's counting hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, being a balgaiva about it. Whoa, look at the money I'm counting. Like nothing. You're working for 25 shekel. Like what do you like? But all the money's going through your hands. That's when you talk to like the Hashem like created these virim, they're mamish like malachim. I have so much covet for them, and listen to them. I'm messiahs with them because the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave them such and they don't look at it as theirs. Now it doesn't mean that everybody who comes they have to give, you know, $1 million to. Very selective and very careful about, you know, how to be a good gabbai. A gabbai tzedakah has to be a good gabbai and has to have this is I'm a gabbai for this and you're a gabbai for that. Understood. Now tinus here, but then there's another person who's like a charitable guy. You know, charitable guy. So I've got a couple $1 million. Of course, I'll give you $1,000, $2,000. It's also something, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's not malchus. That's not malchus. And it doesn't mean that you have to live like a kamsan. That's not what it means. The halacha says you should live. Rambam says mefurish you should live according to what you can afford to live. You shouldn't live less. You shouldn't live more. That's what the Rambam says. If you live less, you're a kamsan. If you live more, you're an idiot. So, like that's so says the Rambam. Hilchos Deis. But the pshat is that there's a gisha here of it's not mine. So I was complaining to the rabbi about this. He's like, he's a charitable guy. $500, $180, $36. Like he's not taking an achrayus or klal Yisrael. He's not coming to a meeting with Rav Steinman and sitting there and saying, okay, what are we supposed to be doing with our money now? That Hashem gave us money. What are we supposed to do with it? That's what the real gvir. So the rabbi told me. He says, what do you want? Like he says, Schroed was trained by Rav Scheinberg, and Rechnitz was trained by I think Rav Hutner, and this one was trained. But this one was trained by Joe Klein. You know, the rabbi, like his rabbi was like who trained him already? Trained him was supposed to give nicer. He's supposed to give. There's I'm just using money as an example. Like, it's b'chol moedecha. Chazal say masha moed etzlecha. Like whatever you value, it's not yours. If a Kodesh Baruch Hu gave you a good voice, sing. For God's sake. Hashem gave you koach, so use the koach for. But what does it mean to me? It's not charitable, b'chlal. It's the Yisoid Harishon and the Yisoid Hasheni of Hashem Echad of Makabel of all Malchus Shemayim. So what is Chazal saying over here? That you can't be Makabel all mitzvahs before you're Makabel all Malchus Shemayim. What does it mean, Yisrael? What would be so bad if the Seder would be hafuch? The answer is, if you're makabel all mitzvos first, then you're a good guy. But you're not an eved. You're a good guy. I'm a good guy. You know, I give tzedakah, put on my tefillin, yeah, sure, I'll put on tefillin. I'm a good guy, but I'm not an eved. I'm doing the mitzvah. So Makabel of all mitzvahs without the background of Makabel of all Malchus, without part of the Malchus, it's not Malchus HaMitzvahs, Malchus Shemayim. So it all comes from this Nekuda that there is nothing else but HaKadosh Baruch. And that's the pshat. So here's an interesting thing. So Reb Chia, I just want to say pshat in the Gemara. Reb Chia is Myrach, two Myrach, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Two Myrach. He says you don't have to be so Myrach, like Bach Patlo. He's more Myrach, in the Achdus Hashem. So I saw a Pirush, maybe the Marsha, I can't remember it, I think maybe the Marsha, that the pshat is that he was getting involved in the Achdus Hashem, that we covered this world, and he also wanted to cover like a higher world, maybe the world of Malachim, every time he's saying Shema, and then he wanted to cover even a higher world, the world of the Bria, the world of Neshamas, and like everything's echad, echad, echad. This was like one of the greatest minds in the generation, one of the holiest people in the generation. So Rabbi Yirmiyah told him, chill. Like your job is, since if you're going to go Mizrach Meyer, front, back, up, down, speak. Like, just at least deal with the Daled Amos that you're in, and the Daled Ruchas that you're in, and Lamala Lamata. That's enough echad for you.
Is that why it's Mexico?
That's why because that's why if you're going above the world, then you're no longer Malchus. In other words, all you need to do, the Gemara of Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Chia is a pirush on Makabel Olav Ol Malchus Shemayim. Once you start with Malachim, Makasher to you, Ol Malchus Shemayim. You're missing a point here.
That's why there's still
why is it oil?
That's why, in your perspective,
why is it an oil?
Why is it oil Malchus? Why then are we equating the oil of Malchus to the oil of Mitzvah? It's not the same.
I'm understanding oil means this is your raison d'etre, the purpose of your creation. That's an oil. You have an obligation. It's not a nice guy. All mitzvos. I'm taking upon myself mitzvahs. I'm taking upon all mitzvahs. But if I don't take Malchus first,
but why is that considered oil? There should just be Makabel Malchus Shemayim and then with the all mitzvahs.
Well, maybe it wouldn't be considered all mitzvahs if you weren't Makabel all Malchus Shemayim first.
So I'm just saying, be Makabel Malchus Shemayim.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what's your kasha? The word oil?
Yeah,
the word
why
mitzvah,
is the word oil? Why are we using the word oil when we're talking about Malchus Shemayim?
Don't you understand that an oil is something which means that I'm an Eved? I'm doing it as Avdus. I'm not doing it. In other words, Malchus requires Avdus. I got like the whole Rosh Hashanah is all this, by the way. Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So recognizing this one, it's a basic thing to recognize. It's a basic thing to recognize, and there can't be anything else, and it's completely kashur to the echad.
Accepting Mitzias is not an oil.
Because accepting that there's only one Mitzias.
Right, the Mitzias is not an oil by definition. The Mitzias of Kaviah.
I disagree. By accepting that there's only one Mitzias, so what am I in this picture?
You're the Eved.
I'm an Eved. I'm just a prop. I'm just
insignificant.
I'm insignificant.
You don't need oil.
Right, so the oil.
Hence, you're an oil. You're just a puppet on a string.
But I think what you're saying is that you don't need
with free choice, which is interesting.
I think what you're saying is you don't need the words oil and Malchus. Malchus is
Malchus
oil.
is an oil. Okay.
So what is that what you're saying?
That is what you're saying. Okay, that I understand. That it could be redundant, but it's a pirush. Makabel olav oil. It doesn't make sense. The Rambam though says, this is what Lashon Rambam I want to bring you, I just can't remember where it is the Rambam says, he doesn't say V'zuhi Kabbalas O Malchus Shemayim. It says V'zuhi Kabbalas HaMalchus. The Rambam says that Lashon, V'zuhi Kabbalas HaMalchus.
So that makes more sense.
I hear.
It's not.
It's mamish chatzos right now, so there's should all be zeichet to Gemara Chasim Tova.
Amen. Olam Haba.
Olam Haba is now the next piece.
You promised, remember.
I just want to go one. I don't want. I want to go a little bit further if it's okay. If anybody's tired, I want to fit your chalik.
You get bigger chalik.
The next, just one more you said. I really wanted to do 5, which is all, because it's all really one thing. You said a shlishi is shlilus hagashmus mimenu, the incorporeality of Hashem. Einoi guf ve'ein lo dmus haguf. He doesn't have a body. Period. He doesn't have a body. Why is this important? Where does it say that he doesn't have a body?
So we don't go looking for him. So.
Robert, you've got Yad Hashem everywhere.
Where does it say in the? Does it say a pasuk someplace?
Because you've got the Lehefech, you've got the Yad Hashem.
First commandment. Born in the.
So the Rambam says, So the Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva, which, by the way, the Hilchos Tshuva is the halacha l'maisa of this. Like, if you're a min, if you're apokar, how you do tshuva. But he says here, Chamisha heina nikroim minim. You don't want to be a min. You don't want to be a min. Oimer she'ein sham. This is the whole tshuva. I didn't read this one yet. Oimer she'ein sham. He loved that word, Rambam. Ein sham elihai. Okay, so Mishnah says, oh, we have it open here. Mila sham shekasav kan rabbeinu einu mayra al maklim. Like over there. Shu yisal ein loy maklim. Al mila sham pohi kepei rafa b'lashon yishmael. An Arabic word. Kind of an Arabic word. I still don't know what it means, but it doesn't mean that.
We say there is. There is. What's there?
You're right. Nothing to do with the maklim.
It's a Metzius, actually. There is a Russian Metzius.
Good. I like it. Chamisha hein nikrai minim ha'omer shein sham elihai. Somebody says, so if min A, you say there's no God. Ve'in lo lamanhig. That's one. Va'omer sheyesh sham manhig, or you're masking that there's a God. Avol heim shnayim o yeser. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, min 1 if you don't believe that. Hashem Echad, min 2, type 2, min if you don't believe that. 3. This is all in the order of the Ikrim. The Rambam consistent goes with the same order. But Oimer, there's a third guy. Oimer Sheyesh Sham Ribon Echad. Okay, I believe in God, and I believe there's only one God. Ella, I only think is Shehu Guf Abal Tmuna. This is very easy to fall into because, like Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit, I have to daven to Hashem because he's right in front of me. So, but the minute you picture something, boom, you're out. Like anything, right? So how do you do this? It's like such a, and this is a kavana makeves. It's the Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit, kavana makeves. So I don't know what everybody's thinking when they're thinking they're standing in front of Hashem. What are they thinking? Whatever you're thinking, it's wrong. Whatever you're thinking is wrong. Stop doing that. No, but on the other way, so what are you supposed to do? The one that picture Shivisi means picture Shivisi Hashem. So Shivisi Hashem, you can think of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So what's that? That's also not Hashem. I don't know what that is.
You're supposed to picture yourself.
So this guy says, look, either he's like a Christian. I think that God took on human form. Okay, that's no good. I believe I'm with you on the God thing. I'm with you on the one thing. I just can't deal with the fact that, like, what am I supposed to, like, what is it now?
Different than imagining some kind of image. He's saying that he thinks God is actually something.
Yeah,
a physical thing.
So he works out with what he thinks God looks like.
Old man with a long white
beard. Whatever.
Don't they say
I think more like a lawyer or something.
Don't they say you're supposed to picture like a curtain? Like you don't know what's behind the curtain, but you can picture the curtain.
I don't know. It's a shver kavana. It's a shver kavana. What? Why a flame?
Fire.
hard to. Everything's a mushal. So.
I'm looking.
Hard.
So Lamaisa, the Rambam explains back in Yesodei HaTorah that you have to say that he doesn't have a goof. He doesn't. You have to say he doesn't have a goof because a goof right away puts a limitation on him. Puts a gvul. Because the goof ends here. Big goof. Whatever. I mean, you know.
Sounds like how is that steers out?
Right. Well, no, because if you have a beginning and an end, then that means there's something else.
There are parts.
Right, so then
You can't. In other words, you can't be infinite and have a goof.
That's why the two different.
As the Rambam says. Oh, so it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. The fact that he's one, that he's a Metzias, and the fact that he's Echad, and the fact that he has no goof is all one thing. That's what the Sefer Ikrim says. There's only one Ikrim. You don't have to go by two. You don't need three Ikrim here. Okay, it's just semantics. But the point is that
theoretically you could have one Metzias, but the top Metzias, but two of them.
right, but it's a halakim of the same. In other words, same nekuda. So, like, once you understand there's only one Metzias, then he has to be Echad, and he can't have a goof. Now, I just want to show you that the Ravid says here that Oimer sheyesh sham riboin echad ela shehu guf ubal tmuna. So this is a min. So the Ravid says, Lama kara lazem min. Why is the Rambam calling him a min? Would he have a pasuk or something that calls? Why would you say that's a min? V'kama gedolim v'toivim mimenu. Many people were much greater than the Rambam held that God has a body. Isn't that weird?
Greater than us.
Mimenu and him. I don't know who. I don't think. I mean, okay. Us meaning him and the Rambam.
Everyone. Or us.
What do you say? Was the Rambam calling people greater than himself a min? That would be a kasha. Why is he saying great people are minim? That's the kasha. Why are you saying greater than him, not greater than him? And why do they say that God has a body? Because, like you say, we saw it in the pasuk. Was it Yad Hashem? Etzbelokim. Haronaf.
That type of body that we have. It's not.
Okay, Hashem saw Moshe said, "Let me see your face."
The biggest rise is
let me see your face. No, I'll show you the back of my head.
It was B'Tselem Elokim. What does it mean, B'Tselem Elokim?
Tselem Elokim.
How are we made B'Tselem? If the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't have B'Tselem, then how are we Tselem Elokim?
Right. This is mamish. I said this is mamish a chiddush of the Rambam that God doesn't have a body, but I believe that he's the first one to say it. So either
not only he's the one who's machadish it, but he says it's apikoros to believe otherwise.
It's a min. Now
doesn't mean he doesn't have a body. We don't have a picture of him.
I'll tell you what I think. I'll just tell you what I think. I think that it never came up until Christianity became popular. So the Rambam says that it's not like it never came up. Like I don't think anybody thought about it one way or the other until it was relevant. I don't think anybody does have a body. Does have a body like what? So the Ravid says it's Rabbi Avram ben Ahar. He's bringing the famous Rishon that held Klor. That he held apparently was going on the type of Mimenu, whoever the Mimenu is. But there's a famous Rami Nahar, which is a Rishon that we use on Yivamis, right? He was one of the Gedolei Adar. He held Klor Hashem as a body. Yep. I wouldn't lie to you.
But a Harshina it says that God, there's no God's hand. It wasn't a hand. It was his action. I mean, there were these words, these nouns.
What are you explaining? The Rambam?
No, in the Torah, when it says...
You're explaining the Rambam.
Yeah, fine.
I'm saying, but that's the Rambam. Before the Rambam said this, nobody said this.
A hand, it was his action.
No, either we took it for granted that Hashem didn't have a body, or they thought he did have a body. There's only two possibilities. there's no more possibilities. So the Ravid, so why are you saying, you're going very... If you want to hold Hashem doesn't have a body, hold he doesn't have a body. But why are you calling a person a min just because he holds... But the Rambam held that you're a min. So why did he hold you're a min? Because it's not it's philosophically untenable to say that Hashem has a body, because then you're putting a limitation on him. And then if you put a limitation on him, then you're taking away from the fact that he's the only Metzias. And if he's not the only Metzias, so then you're a min. So I believe that the answer to the Ravid's kasha of why he called him a min is because you're violating the first two of the 13 principles.
That's why you don't say yes.
The Ravid, the Kesef Mishnah says, "Yeshli tmaya al pek chadosh." This is what's going on here. The Rambam says he's a min, and the Ravid said, "Why are you calling Gedolim a min?" And he says, why are you calling the Rambam a min? He says, Yesh li'tmai al peh kadosh eich yikra lo imrim shehu guf ubal tmuna gedolim v'toivim mimenu. How could you say somebody who holds that Hashem has a guf is better than the Rambam?
That's secular.
Yeah, it keeps going over here. But okay, like I don't think anybody. It's an interesting thing. According to some accounts of history, the reason that they burnt the Rambam in public in time of Rabbi Yaacov in Paris was because he said that everybody who believes that God has a body is a min.
He meant man. He didn't mean min. He meant man.
Yeah. No, but in other words, was he calling other Gedolim a min? Was he calling Gedolim a min? That's the mamish cause. Now at the end, the Rambam won this one because nobody thinks about Hashem as a body. But it does cause a philosophical problem as to what then. But the point is, so let's just do a sikum on everything, and I'll let you guys.
Anybody held that he does have a body? How do they explain the infinity?
Right. That's well, they weren't the sort of they didn't philosophize into it like the Rambam did.
Did Rambam say that Hashem has a physical body, or is he saying that we're allowed to imagine a body in order to relate to something?
He says like this. He says that if the Torah says Yad Hashem, and if the Torah says Pnei Hashem, and the Torah says Erev Hashem, etc. So, who just because you don't understand it, like, why do you say that it isn't so? You have a kasha. So, we're starting to kasha. So, yeah. I'm not saying I understand the Rabbi, but I also didn't understand. I'm not saying I understand it. So now the Rambam comes along with a kasha. The Rambam was a genius. So the Rambam comes along with a kasha. Then where's the infinity? Okay, so you have a kasha.
How can this
so
be one of
the take the pasuk away? Ein mikra moitzi b'dei pshuta.
How can this be one of the economy if it's so clearly
according to the Rambam?
Yeah, but if it's so clearly a machlokas.
So the Rambam had to have held that everybody held that he didn't have a guf, except they didn't articulate it. No, there is no shita anywhere that says that Hashem has a guf. It's not a shita, and therefore it's one of the ikr. There's a chiddush in the Rambam that he made it into one of the.
You also have the reverse of that. If there is a body, not just that there's a limitation, but then there's also if we are going to the way we understand it is Rabban Shalom is everywhere, right? And by definition, a guf can't be everywhere.
That's right. That meaning.
Right. No, on both sides it's a limitation.
Right. Meaning that if he's here, he's there, he's everywhere.
Right. Then he can't be.
So the minute he has a guf, so there's no kabbalah malchus shemayim.
Right. Then you can't possibly have either corporeal body or non-corporeal body.
So the sikum goes like this. This is so we covered really one ikr shem shleisha shem echad, and that is that really, and this is what it means to be a Jew. What it means to be a Jew is that there's only one Metzius in this world. As I said at the beginning, like nobody's forcing anybody to believe anything. But if you want to believe like a Jew, this is what you believe. There's only one Metzius in the world, and the Metzius is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create a world. Because ein melech b'lo yam. That's called malchus. What we need to decide is, are we part of the malchus? Are we not part of the malchus? The goyim were not makabel this malchus. Hashem went around at Har Sinai and offered the goyim the Torah also. They were not makabel the malchus. B'meilu they're mutter b'shituf. Because they don't have to have they're not part of the malchus. They're not part of the army. But if you're part of the malchus Hashem, which we are, Baruch Hashem, and the benefits are eternal. If you're part of the Malchus Hashem, then what's important to understand is that there is no other Metzius. No other Metzius means not my wife, not my parnasa, not my husband, not my health, not my nothing. There's no other Metzius. There is only one Metzius. Ein oid novada. Ein oid novada is there simply are no other Metzius. You see Metzius. It's all part of Hashem's Malchus. Now there's the part of Malchus that we understand, and the part of the Malchus you don't understand. That's okay. Like you don't have to understand everything to be in this Malchus, but there's part of it that we do. It doesn't make any difference whether we understand it or not. This is the Metzius. The Metzius is that this is the Ratzon of Hashem. If I had another 2 hours, I wanted to get into Ratzon, especially because what the Taitcha, because Ratzon is the next piece of this for next year, if you remind me. But the Nekuda here is, the Nekuda is that there's only one Metzias, the Metzias is Hashem, and it can only be one Metzias if he's Echad, and not Shtayim, and if he has no Guf. And those three work together as one. Okay, let's just sing a quick nigga before we go.